I think the way I used to think about things, I used to be just absolutely obsessed with certain things growing up, and I was reflecting on it. Like earlier in life, it was like skateboarding. So I think I had that same sort of mentality for YouTube very early on. I like these things. I'm confident in these things. I'm just going to do it. So I think that sort of like delusion a little bit, or I guess early on, kind of helped me motivated.
3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Reactorverse podcast brought to you by Passionfruit. I am joined today by someone I'm very, very happy to call an old friend in this space as far as, YouTube experience goes. It's my old buddy, FailWhale34.
Hello. What's going on, brother? Glad to be here today with you.
Yeah. It's again, like I've done this with Late to the Party. Back in the day, I used to have a podcast with like some of my friends. I just started getting into sort of the YouTube space, learning more about people, and you were one of the first channels I found. And was like, I really like this guy. I want to kind of like just pick his brain about, what he goes through, kind of how he operates. And that was back in 2019, pre-pandemic, everything. And a lot has changed, obviously.
Yeah.
So when I started doing this, I was like, I want to get you on, definitely. I want to wait a bit and have you come on once I'm got some traction. I'm really happy to have you here to sort of catch up, just sort of go back over everything that we went through in that last conversation we had.
For sure, yeah. No, I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to see how well the podcast is doing, and the documentation of like the reactors on each of the shows.
Yeah.
I was just saying earlier off camera that I saw some of the shorts with like Nikki and Steven react,
right,
and JV, CJ and Go TV, the homies. So
yeah,
I think you're doing some awesome stuff.
Yeah, thanks, man. So like I said, we had this conversation before back in 2019. And I asked you some similar questions that we're going to go over today. So if I might put a link to that below to our conversation, but I want to retread a few things here. So just to catch up anyone who, maybe may not have heard that one and want to learn again. So I'll start with my usual question for most people, which is the name of the channel, FailWhale34. Where did that start?
Yeah. So, the name FailWhale34 pretty much just came as a lot of people's names came, I think, where it was just your online persona growing up. For me, playing, a GameCube, Xbox, making my Hotmail, that was my name. Right. Pretty much it derived from Twitter. When Twitter first came out, when the page overloaded, it basically called it a fail whale. And instead of birds popping up, a whale would pop up for some reason. So I found that really funny in like the 6th grade or whatever, 7th grade. And then pretty much from there, I was making my Xbox Live name. I said, hey, what was that funny name from the other day? FailWhale34. Paul Pierce is my favorite basketball player. Was and still is. So that's pretty much how it came to it. And I think I had like 13 subscribers on it when I decided to make YouTube videos. So I was like, that's better than 0. Right? So
Yeah. You started the channel, as some dude just with like comic book reviews, stuff like that, like reviews on The Walking Dead. That was pretty much your bread and butter for the channel for that first year or so. Prior to starting the channel, though, did you have any sort of creative outlets to share thoughts online anywhere? Or was it kind of something that you were looking for, like a platform for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. In terms of creative outlets, prior to making YouTube videos, I definitely dabbled in a couple of things. I think one primarily for me growing up was like skateboarding. I found that to be a form of outlet earlier on, from like, I want to say like 8 to like 17, so like just before I stopped doing that and getting to YouTube. I also made beats as well from time to time. I had like the machine, I had the MK1, so I used to just hit the pads a little bit on there. Never actually learned to play the instruments all too well, but sample, cut up, make some stuff, and really like botched tracks.
Right.
It was comicbookmovie.com actually. So I think it was before, just at the same time, I started to get really into like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and just fandom culture. I think CBM, I used to sort of explore theories on there when I was really into like some of the earlier Marvel things. So I'd say probably that, yeah.
Yeah, and were you following any other channels on YouTube by the time you started, like people that you were kind of like looking at for like an example?
Yeah. One person I really was a big fan of at the time, speaking of The Walking Dead, was Trev's Chan 2. He was a very specific Walking Dead YouTuber. He didn't do reactions because that just wasn't his thing. But he did more just like breakdowns, theory videos, talking about what was going to happen, or just like the episodes themselves. Before I started the reactions, I was really into his channel quite a bit.
All right. And then how did you kind of stumble upon, I guess, the reaction format that you would eventually dabble in?
Yeah, back then, I don't know. You remember how it was back then. TV shows, not that many people were doing them per se, but reaction started just to pop off in general. Or there was like commentary. That was more like the reaction genre. I felt more so that people watching TV shows. Right. So I knew about that genre. I only found out about people doing the reaction videos because I think I saw it in like the recommended. But more or less, I think Jessica Jones is coming out. I saw some people were doing the reaction videos. I said, okay, why don't I just try to that? I had just done it for The Walking Dead, or I was about to. I think I did right after that. So I think that's how I sort of stumbled onto it. Right. I saw some other people do it. A new show came out. I said, instead of making a review, why don't I just watch it?
Yeah.
Sort of just did it.
Right. And was there any sort of technical learning curve you had, like getting started with those things in terms of like just the editing, like the camera lighting, so on?
Yeah, I think just around that time I had learned how to use Photoshop and like iMovie and Premiere Pro, like probably like a year or two before that in high school. So I sort of had the basics down in terms of how to like chop things, put them together. I used to know how to do it before, but it was like super sketchy. I used to use like Flash 8 to like export files and like just do all this like next stuff. But learning how to be efficient, I think, at making reaction videos initially, finding your own format and style and flow. I remember I used to have like my university laptop, and I used to have my iPhone, and I would have to just sort of guess where I'm putting it in to sort of record myself, because I couldn't really get anything like a proper camera or even a proper webcam at the time. So I just used what I had, my phone and my school laptop.
Yeah.
And then I remember going to Winners and getting like a $20 tripod, and so like that was my setup for a while to get into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, as you said, with like a lot of people that we know, you started with The Walking Dead in mid 2016. And that would have been season 6 leading into season 7, the premiere with Negan and so on. And that episode, launched 1,000 channels, as they usually say for everyone. It was such a big moment for like just the space and like kind of the genre in general. And I've spoken about the impact of The Walking Dead with like many channels so far. And what was your experience starting a larger reaction show like that, specifically when the fandom was kicking up with season 7?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't think I really gave it too much consideration. I think because at that time I was pretty young and just really excited about just the show in general. I was a huge fan of the series. I had, purchased the comic books. I had read them. I had been anticipating them. My friend caught me up on the show, I think, a couple years before that. And I was personally, I think, at like my peak excitement for the show, as I'm sure as other people were. So I'm trying to remember. It's so long ago, honestly. It feels like a different lifetime at this point, right? We could talk about that in a little bit. But it was just exciting to talk about the thing that I was so passionate about and just put up my honest thoughts. Like I was yelling on the couch regardless. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that was the fun part to me. And just share that with people. So I just absolutely love that direct engagement, and that, I guess, that positive, positive loop, positive feedback. From giving my thoughts, my criticisms as just random kid on the internet, and having people like-minded also receive that positively for the most part, and obviously some negative,
Right.
You get the occasional pencil head comment,
Right. As people do. But the engagement part is such a big thing. I think people usually see a significant spike in engagement when they start the reaction channels or the reaction videos, and the way people respond to those. Do you recall any sort of like significant change in engagement once you started kind of like dabbling in reaction TV show videos? Yeah,
for sure. So a good parameter for me to remember these times was my best friend then and still now. I think I told you about him last time I was there. Sam from Team Samurai X1.
Right.
So I'll just lead into that story there for any new listeners. Back in the 12th grade, he had been doing Yu-Gi-Oh videos on YouTube, and I think he had about 10,000 subscribers at the time. And he pulled me to the back of the library one day. He's like, "Hey, FW, I do YouTube. these are what these Yu-Gi-Oh videos are. I think you could be really passionate about what you're passionate about and talk to other people about them. So comic books, movies, TV shows. We basically made like a little like pact, like it was an episode of Naruto or something in a flashback sequence. Yeah. And we said, like we're both going to do this together, and we both ended up doing it for many years. And he's still doing great. He's almost at 800K subs and like the Yu-Gi-Oh guy on YouTube. And every couple of months at that period, we would sort of like look at each other's stuff and be like, oh man, like dude, like we're both like going up. So I remember when I started, I had like a few hundred subscribers. And then I think once I started doing the reviews with like Fear the Walking Dead, when that came out, started to pick up a little traction. But it wasn't really until like the Jessica Jones dropped.
Right.
Started picking up on the idea of algorithms. The Walking Dead was just like banger after banger. It was like 10K, 20K. I remember waking up some nights and like staying up, just fixing thumbnails or, doing premieres with like a few hundred people or 1,000 people live streaming them. So I definitely noticed that first, season 6, 7 of The Walking Dead, some spikes in shows. And then for other things like anime, dabbling into that initially was crazy too.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned, so like Jessica Jones, so on, like it was like Stranger Things, Game of Thrones, all those kind of like big shows, I think that are part of a healthy diet for reaction channels.
Back then and still now, because people, there's no, I used to think there was, we can talk about the newer landscape too. Like before it used to be like, you just watch, this show, nobody would touch movies. That was taboo for many years.
Right.
And then, people started to I guess during COVID kind of just decided to broaden out their horizons a bit more. I feel.
Yeah, totally. Was there any sort of specific strategy that you had once you had like sort of a large rotation of shows to put out?
Yeah, I think there was 2 moments where my sort of strategy for it changed, because I think initially for a while I was just sort of going with like whatever works, just here are the shows that I like, people like watching, I'll just do that. And then after a while I started trying to like treat it more like, I guess, like a business, or, operate it more, I guess structurally. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, let me try and do like Toshi and like Akasan. So I sort of see what other people were doing and sort of mimic some of those selections at the time.
Yeah.
So I noticed that they would, for example, back, I think it was like 2017 or 2018, Patreon launched. And I noticed that people were doing like these unedited videos. And I'm like, I just couldn't understand it. I'm like, why would anybody sort of like, why would you make 2 different strategies? It didn't make sense to me. And I realized, I'm like, oh, okay, well, if people like that and they want to support it, then that's an option for them to do. Then they'll get more content.
True.
So that was one strategy, sort of marketing to Patreon. And then I think from a content perspective, just sort of tackling different like niches and things that I was interested in. So I really like sci-fi. I think I wanted to try longer TV format shows as well, because I also did notice that people weren't just doing week-to-week shows. They started to go back into, different back catalogs and do like, Seinfeld or, whatever, like older mainstream shows, and start looking at like, okay, what shows haven't been on for a long time? What haven't I seen? What could my audience be interested? What is my audience interested in? And then sort of finding a healthy medium between all of those, I think there's a Venn diagram somewhere. You want to go for something in the middle,
Right, exactly. And you mentioned the sort of more extensive shows that you were watching at that time. I believe you were still in school for the first couple of years that you were doing it. And so do you recall how heavy the workload was and how you sort of managed that in those early years?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know how I did it. like half of the time I think back to those times, especially when, I guess, as you get older, things happen, you reflect on capacity currently versus then. Like, I think the way I used to think about things, I used to be just absolutely obsessed with certain things growing up, and I was reflecting on it. Like earlier in life, it was like skateboarding. I used to just be like absolutely obsessed with that. I would do it every single day by myself with friends, and that was the only thing on my mind. I want to get this tray flip. I'd practice for hours non-stopping. Or if it was, let's just say that. So I think I had that same sort of mentality for YouTube very early on, where it was like, I made a pact. I like these things. I'm confident in these things. I'm just gonna do it. I don't care. Like I believed. I'm like, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna fucking just ride it out.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. So I think that sort of like delusion, a little bit, or I guess early on, kind of helped me motivated to get past get through all that. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense that early sort of drive, that passion you have for something that's like new and fresh. Like obviously, like I'm really happy you're still here today, but it was, as I can tell in the past, it was like a very extensive workload.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Not sustainable too, like in hindsight, for sure.
right. Yeah. I think a lot of like creators I've kind of talked to have said the same thing. It's like, that early hustle that you have is like the goal to get to a point where you feel sustainable, not that it's supposed to be sustainable that way in the long run. You got to be able to get over that hump for yourself one way or another.
For sure.
And once you were doing all those shows, you eventually, like you mentioned, ventured into anime. That was like a new sort of horizon for you. Do you recall any sort of distinct engagement for that sort of fan base once you started getting into those shows?
For sure, yeah, totally. Anime and reacting is it's an interesting category, especially when you look at it from how it was before and how it was now. Because back in the day, there's only like a few guys who were super lit at it. And then I remember I tried doing anime reactions, and One Punch Man was really popular at the time. And I started dropping these just for fun. I'm like, you know what? Let me try it. I did the entire series, and I remember they got stupid views. It was crazy. I had never seen anything like that, really. And I deleted the whole catalog because I hadn't run into any of those copyright issues previously.
Right.
So the moment that I saw that these videos that were doing crazy got these strikes and my channel was at jeopardy and I didn't really know what to do, I think after fighting back a couple times, I just said, fine, forget it. I'll just delete them, and I deleted them. I think it was a massive mistake because they had such a retention and engagement and longevity to those videos. I think that was an impact, an opportunity cost, and a missed chance. I think in anime.
Yeah, right. But similar, like my friend Iman Snow, like had the same experience. Like she got into One Punch Man as well on her channel, and those really blew up. And she had the same sort of event where they suddenly got masked, blocked, or claimed or striked.
Yeah.
And she kind of, as most young creators do, had like that sort of panic mode where like, I don't know what to do here. Safest thing is to delete it, right?
Yeah.
And just in hindsight, years later, like it's a shame because you can wish you could tell yourself back then, like, no, here's how you can like sort of navigate it so you don't have to like shoot yourself in the foot trying to just like make it safe for yourself. And yeah, it's a shame that young creators don't really have those tools to understand like how they can protect themselves or fight back, when they're doing things by the book. Like,
no, for example, exactly. And it was one of those things where back then there wasn't as many resources or I guess forums or people now who are participating in, who were not participating in the same thing, who are now, because it's just like the genre is so huge now. There's like thousands of reactors versus maybe 100 or 200 back in the day. Right. So there's people like yourself and other great resources to help people just understand what they're doing and how to fight back and like what they can get away with and not. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And then with anime, as it usually does for, I think, most people, is I've heard them say anime is kind of like the threshold they had to pass to realize they need mods for their channel, for spoilers specifically. Was that anything you had to learn as you got into, doing reactions of like, navigating spoilers for the comment section?
Yeah, that was I think I had a weird go around about that because initially, and I think this is to a detriment, I think, to my career in reactions and stuff, the mistakes that I made. One of them was I think I was so apprehensive about spoilers that it impacted my engagement with my community. To the point where like I wasn't building on my social because I didn't really want to go and like have to like sort stuff out and sort of have that, sort of completely guarded experience. I think I took that really seriously. And one of obviously many reasons that I think I didn't build as my engagement and interaction with your audience, which I think is absolutely crucial. Yeah.
And engagement. We keep going back to engagement. And I just spoke to Nikki and Steven about the importance of community and how that rolls into like your motivation with this thing. I guess. And what kind of tools or rewards have you found through like engaging with the community, be it on Patreon or YouTube or just like online? What has kind of been like these sort of memorable moments that you've had with that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I would say mostly in when reflecting, a lot of that direct engagement and I guess positive reinforcement did come from the comment section, and it did come from like live streams. We used to do a lot of them back in the day. from like 2017 to like 2019, 20. And that was a way, you know, I don't think I realized at the time, but that was how I was fostering the community at the time, and just I guess the regulars who would want to tune in regardless of what was being watched, right? Because with reactions, it's like you're only going to get a specific amount of surface area for each show or demographic you're watching, right? So it's the extra steps you do to cultivate a community and culture that actually retain, I guess, more people and a deeper connection, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, finding those sort of dedicated supporters through the specific shows is like something that's very consistent among a lot of channels. I think one of them being Doctor Who is such a big fan base that like kind of supports like the creators that want to come and like watch it and like really like, you know, highlight the show. And that was such a big part of your channel for a long time as well, just because you were playing catch up with the show. And we spoke about it last time you were here, your experience with that, because at that point you were still catching up. You had not gotten to the point where the show was currently airing. Now, years later, you have gotten to that point. And I guess, again, I want to reiterate, what was that like going into the show blind, and that experience of being able to enjoy the show a way that sort of current watching fans can't, you know, knowing when the Doctor's going to regenerate, when the companion's going to leave, so on, all those kind of twists and turns that's really baked into the show's lifespan.
To me, that was honestly like one of the best experiences I think it had. And I think in hindsight, looking back on it, I cherish it even more, just for how unique of an experience it was. I got to watch the show that everybody is very popular and loves, and go back through it and just experience those moments. And I think I think that show, I had the most direct feedback, more so even than The Walking Dead, because it was a longer duration. I felt like people were more invested with it along with me. And I felt you know, their excitement in each episode or each season finale or each iteration of the Doctor due to how this series is structured. That back and forth on the week to week was just a ton of fun. It was mysteries. There were some classic moments, I think, in twists and turns, and even my reactions. I feel like a lot of I guess if you're looking at like an NBA career, I think a lot of my highlight years, or you know, great games were in Doctor Who, right? Whether it was, I don't know, you know, 1 to 12's goated episodes or speeches, you know, the River Song reveal, the face about, like, all those are just goated moments. So
totally, yeah.
I think it was definitely in that. I think last time we had talked about, me and you had spoken, I think I was just finishing up 12, and I think Jodie was just starting, or
no, I think it was way before that, actually. I think it was when you at least on the show I think we're just getting close to finishing up Matt Smith's run. Yeah, so it was I think it was a while back. Yeah.
Dang, yeah.
Yeah.
A wee bit back, you know.
Yeah. And what was, I guess, the experience like catching up to the show then, and then being on the same playing field as the rest of the fandom?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, like, I'm still like not paying attention to too much of the fandom or anything like that. I actually just started to gear up some plans to like, okay, like, I think in terms of like my new content strategy, I want to change things up. And I'm thinking now that Doctor Who season's coming back, you know, spooky season's mostly done. Try to revert back and to be basically just flip things on its head a little bit. I think it's been long enough. I've had my ups and downs and, you know, difficulties, I guess, in figuring out new landscapes, that now I'm just like, you know what, let me just stop holding back and do what I want to do, what I think is going to work, what might not work, but just be open and honest and try experiment with new things. So that includes, you know, Doctor Who is this thing I had this amazing time with and people seem to really like, so lean into that a little bit more, try you know, new exciting things even outside of reactions or whatever. And
totally,
that's what I'm looking to hopefully do.
Yeah, just flex those sort of creative, you know, muscles left and right, you know, which is I always advocate for, is like sort of being you know, diverse in like how you express yourself. And like you are not, like you said, you're not shy of picking lengthy shows, you know, for the channel, like, you know, Stargate, X-Files, Buffy.
Hey, yo, shout out to BSG. You told me to do and I did it.
It's finally there. I was very excited when you dropped that. I've been watching them every time you drop one, man. It's my favorite show of all time. So I've been happy going through it again with you. But those shows did carry you over for like several years, going straight into what would be the pandemic and the pandemic era of like the reaction channel and just the world. So I guess what was your reaction experience like managing the channel through the pandemic, but also just like managing life changes and like sort of how you balance the work and life together?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, if I sort of look at, how long I've been doing this for like 8 years now, I think I sort of look at it in the first 4 years, which was from about like 2015 to 2019, just before the pandemic, and then 2020 to now. Definitely have taken some shots in terms of just, like my output, enthusiasm in the past. And I think some of that has to do with just, like you said, I think I made some mistakes along the way, like, maybe too much commitment in terms of shows, or over how do you say it? Over promising, under delivering,
Right.
when you're tripping up occasionally, whether that's in scheduling or content you're actually doing that you maybe know you could spend other time doing better things, and growth as well, right? And having like a balance of all that, and keeping a fine eye on things.
Yeah.
I think during 2020 to 2023, I think I started getting a good groove, and I started being a little bit on autopilot per se, of not like paying attention to like, oh, this new show's coming out, oh, this new movie's coming out, oh, like the meta is changing here, you should try and adapt to be more flexible, versus like, no, like we've got these long running shows, we're just gonna rock with those.
Yeah.
Right. So that was my personal experience, what I've sort of been dealing with and learned about over the past like couple years, I guess, doing the videos.
Yeah. And because like I said, the pandemic was like a really tumultuous and transformative time for the whole landscape. And then for yourself, to get into sort of like something very specific, it was in early 2022, you took a bit of an unexpected break from the channel, from January to about May, I think. And you came back after a few months, and in your words, you said that it was burnout. That was what you cited as like sort of the main reason why you had to step away from it. Yeah. And the thing is, I always advocate for breaks, vacations, and self-care, mental health care for everyone who's doing this, like reactor, creator, whatever, because like burnout is like a very, very real thing. And some people don't even realize it until it hits them. It's like that thing that sneaks up on you, and until it's like overwhelming, you kind of have to sort of make that clean break. So for you, like when I saw that you came back, and I was kind of like keeping up to date with what you're doing, I was actually quite proud that you were able to take that time, because it's something that people don't want to do, and they'll bury themselves because like they're too afraid to like give themselves that sort of break from it. And so at your own discretion, I just want to ask, however comfortable you're sharing, could you help sort of detail what that whole experience and process was like in those months that you had to step away?
Yeah. It was an interesting thing. I think that feeling of burnout, like you said, if you don't realize it until it's already too late a lot of the times. And I think at that point, I had honestly probably been burnt out, I think, even like the year prior. Truthfully, I think I remember like in 2021, like March, I was like, yo, like I'm not feeling absolutely great at the moment. But I'm sort of just like, I'm just going to keep it going, push it aside. And then at a certain point, you just sort of realize like it's like your health is a little bit more important than the content, even though sometimes in your head you're like, no, like I got to keep it going, or like, if I just extend as much as I can, things will work out. But in actuality, like you said, you need to take proper breaks. You can't just keep things going, because eventually you're going to just sort of fall apart, and it'll spill into other aspects of your life. And I think for myself, that idea of like taking a pause and like taking a breather and regrouping took a long time to even get to. But I think it's super important for people. Yeah. And for me, I think personally, I think I was, going through like just bouts of like depression, anxiety, and stuff like that at the time. So I decided to try like, more regular therapies, and like getting on like, starting some antidepressants, stuff like that. So that also was a challenging period, because like, takes time to adjust to that. And then there's a lot of ups and downs. And then it's also like another end where it's like, you can do better. You're just a part of it striving to want to do better, but you're also struggling to just keep with that output, right? And when there's that, I guess that that mismatch can cause a lot of frustration and anxiety. So there's a lot of that, I think, during that period. And yeah, exactly, man. Like it's all very true, because when you're struggling personally, like, sometimes people find an outlet in the work, and like they're able to escape through that, but that can be a double-edged sword, because then you
it becomes more of a band-aid sometimes rather than a remedy for what you really need. And when you're away from the work, you start to kind of build what, my girlfriend refers to as like a shame pile of things. You're like, I stepped away from it too long, I can't get back. Was there like a moment for you that you kind of felt like, like that you found the sort of motivation to get back for it? Was there any specific thing that sort of helped you sort of jump back on the horse, after the long break?
Yeah. I feel like I'm still getting back on the horse a little bit, honestly.
Aren't we all, man?
Yeah,
honestly,
right?
in some regard.
Yeah, honestly, but that's life. It's like it's learning about, just being honest with yourself, your situations, and just tackling them as best as you can, right? So, and just giving yourself a little grace, and as long as you're trying your best to sort of keep things going, right? That I know I can do better. I think that's what sort of motivated me. Like what motivates me is like I have two very different trains of thoughts. On one hand, I can be the I guess like the doomer and just be like, oh, like like it's like time to pack it up. It's been long enough. You're getting older. You have other careers you can pursue. Maybe this isn't for you. The time has passed already. All your peers are already doing great, and like you sort of fell behind. Which I think there is merit to that, and that is true. I think another part of me says, okay, look, you've seen other channels who've been stagnant for years who turn it around once they give honest, deep, brutal honesty. They figure out what work, what doesn't work, and they figure out a new game plan, and they have a new sort of revitalize, I guess, motivation, values, and they're working aligned with that. Why? There's no reason why I don't think I couldn't do the same thing or can't do the same thing.
Right.
So that's sort of where I think my head is at now, and just doing the work to get through that and take the channel to new places. And with that, like I said, it's going to take trying new things, being curious, putting in the effort, failing, not being scared if you fail. It's in your damn name. You know what I'm saying? So that's sort of the more positive mindset and attitude that I've been sort of working at behind the scenes that I'm hopefully starting to put the action towards on camera. Right. I guess, or out there more.
Yeah. No, it's very beautifully put, man. I appreciate your candidness, like, and all that, because like I said, I think it's very important that people hear, like the honesty that you're speaking of, that who you are behind the camera. Now, you're not just a face that's like you're acting to the things that people like. You're a person, people like you for you. That's the thing that I think is really such a staple of the reaction community, is like being able to connect with the creators on such a personal, deep level. And going into that, did you now that you are back and you said you're trying to find better avenues for yourself to express your creativity? Did you make any sort of permanent changes to your schedule, your sort of output to help the work-life balance a little better?
Yeah, I've been still figuring it out personally. But there's some great people in the space. I reached out to, I think like last year, a couple of months ago, Rick from Blindwave. I thought about it like, there's so many great peers and resources in the community. We have that, Reactor YouTube channel. People are always helpful, giving tips there. If something goes wrong, even if you shoot a message to, I shot a message to Rick about his schedule, his bouts with, whatever he goes through. Yep. He gave me some great feedback and advice. I've been dabbling more in like vitamins, trying to get a healthier balance. I feel like taking care of myself better will allow me to, be the better creator, be a better entertainer.
Of course.
And I think just working towards having a better schedule is what I've been trying to do. Just figure it out what works, right? I think I used to try and treat it not like a proper formatted structure, like a traditional job, but I think that lack of structure actually caused a lot of, had a lot of effects. Yeah. So I've been working more, just trying to wake up early, figuring out a schedule that works. I don't know how you've been doing it nowadays, Eric, but I kind of like pull my hair out trying to figure out what to do nowadays, because I feel like the landscape is just so different now compared to how things were, and just how content has evolved and changed over time, right? Like you've got to have, it's almost easier now to make it and do well and prosper, but it also feels like there's so many different ways to do it, or you almost get like disabled from being able to do it. I don't know. Right.
No, I totally know what you meant. It's almost like the idea that there's so many tools at your disposal now that it's overwhelming to use those tools. because there's like they all do so many different things, and it's overwhelming
Yeah.
to sort of keep up with like what each one does and the impact it has on your sort of stature of the whole place. Yeah, it's kind of like what I remember a roundtable I watched a long time ago with Guillermo del Toro, and talked with a bunch of other directors, and he was saying about like budgets for films, and he says like he would much rather work with a small budget for a film than a large endless budget, because he says limitations, boundaries give you makes it easier for you. Yeah, I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, he says like it's easier to work within boundaries of like what you can work with than to like just have endless possibilities, because then it sort of becomes overwhelming. You don't know which one is the right avenue to go in. So like without that guide, it becomes difficult. And for creators like yourself, like you're saying, like it is like this, the landscape has changed over like, the pandemic and so on. And with just like the way TikTok has grown, Instagram and Facebook and YouTube's kind of followed suit. You all have like these sort of new various outlets to keep tabs on at all times. And for me, keeping tabs on you guys, it is a little crazy. Yeah,
I don't know how you do it, man. There's so many of us, but yeah, I think that's also just being mindful of time too, right? Like I'm trying to not fall in the same pitfalls, like, okay, too much commitment or too many shows. That's why I'm kind of happy now that I'm winding things down a little bit personally, where it's like, okay, I'm going to keep it to very light and basic schedule, start to make some changes and updates over like a few month period, implement things and see how it works.
Yeah. And then, being comfortable. Yeah. Being comfortable with what you're doing, to make sure it's a sustainable output of creativity for you. So like that you feel fulfilled by it, regardless of like, what it does outwardly, what it does inwardly is as important for yourself.
100%.
I would say that for anyone who's working in this space. And yeah, again, so now we're here, 2023, things have, stabilized a little bit with like the space and like people and the world in general. And you mentioned Battlestar. I'm very happy that you're watching Battlestar now.
So say we all.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of my favorite shows, as I mentioned, and it's just like it's funny because when you started it, I don't know if it's like, again, the algorithm kicking in or what, but I started now seeing a bunch of other reactors start to like pick up on it. Sunny from Cat and Sunny's watching it now. He's a couple episodes behind you. Funny Little Girl reacts. She's like a little bit ahead, and like it's just it's the galacticence that I was waiting for, honestly, because I really wish people would react to it, but like it's for so many years it was like that show that people kind of like just like glossed over.
I give it a year, 2 years tops. We'll see Blind Wave and the normies doing. Everyone's gonna do SG soon.
Yeah,
trust me.
Yeah, especially when they've done so many other shows. So like, they gotta start finding eventually.
Yeah, no, eventually. But it's dope to see that, right? And that's one of the I guess benefits of reaction videos, right? Is people reliving old shows they had seen before with a new audience, or discovering new shows with your new audience that you've made via exploring shows. So I think that's one of the cool, I guess, effects from that.
Totally, yeah. I've seen Battlestar 8 or 9 times now in its entirety. And I'm excited. I'm still excited to go through it again with each one of you.
How was that season 1 finale though? Huh? How was that season 1 finale?
Yeah, that's an all-timer right there. Really.
Yeah.
So to start winding things down a little bit. I think we kind of went over some of these. But my usual question is, what has been the most consistent obstacle for you with the channel over the years?
The most consistent obstacle has been myself. Yeah, just like getting in my own way, and being stubborn for some reason, like unnecessarily stubborn, right? I think that's been my biggest obstacle, right? Whether that means like consistency, setting myself up to succeed more, or to like listen to positive feedback a little bit more. And just trying new things, right? Because the moment you stop trying new things, there's no growth.
Right.
So I think I personally have been a blockade in a lot of my past to sort of move forward or try new things or explore new avenues within, I guess, this. Totally.
Yeah. And
I sound so sad, don't I?
You sound wise. That's how I would say it, honestly. The self-reflection is such a big part of what I really advocate for with this thing, because it's easy to, just like I said, to go on autopilot with the work and just be like, here's the next thing, here's the next show, here's how this thing is going to work out, schedule, plan, numbers, execute. But really reflecting on like what these shows do for you, what the work does for you, I think is such an important part of like the longevity of being in the space. Otherwise, if you're looking at it just from a sort of like analytical stance of like, what does it do? How well does it doesn't turn out, then that's when things do start to become like really overwhelming.
For
so
sure.
Again, I really appreciate like what you're telling us today, what like how you're really analyzing your own sort of investment in your work. It is really important. And I guess my next question is, how have you grown over the years with the channel?
Yeah. Like in what manner? Like how have like I as an individual on
Personally
the
and
channel grown?
professionally? Yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a great question. I feel like I personally have changed a lot and grown over the past couple of years, um, as an individual. Like I've had like new interests and hobbies over the past couple of years that I've sort of like really dived into and like learned and tried new things. Whereas I feel like the fandom me sort of has been on pause, if that makes any sense. Like I still absolutely like love film and TV. That's a passion of mine. But I feel like I was sort of exploring other things in the past couple of years, and I sort of like, and I think I also sort of fell in love with like some of the bigger things, like the Marvel movies. I think
Right.
they just happened to coincide with that.
Hmm.
But now I find myself like getting more, converging back to that. I feel like it's a pendulum a little bit.
Right.
So I feel like my personal life was changing a lot more, where my work life sort of stayed the same or paused for a second.
Yep.
And I now feel like it's sort of switching back a little bit now, where it's like I feel like I'm getting back more into a new season of change,
Yeah.
exploration for work, and like I feel like I've grown personally. Put that to pause for now and just get back in work, properly.
Yeah.
And with that experiences and try new things.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Again, like exploration, trying new things, like yeah, like you said, is very, very important for keeping things fresh for yourself. And my last question for the main part of this, beyond any financial or monetary value, what has been the most rewarding aspect of the channel for you?
I think the most rewarding thing has been, I guess, just those moments of community, knowing that you're spending time. There's people around the world who will leave paragraph comments on your videos, will support you, and even put that level of effort and attention into just supporting what you're doing. I think that's been probably the coolest aspect, and the most satisfying, from, I guess, making content, making videos.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, I appreciate all your insight today, because it's very, very important to hear these specific thoughts. Really, I want to get into our final questionnaire of the show. Our
Let's do it.
Personal questions. So we'll get started here. Question 1: what is your favorite show of all time?
I think my favorite show of all time. Okay, I'm gonna say this. I love Ben 10. This is not like my actual favorite show, but it's also like a guilty pleasure of mine. Like I loved Ben 10 growing up, which sucks because I want to react to it now that I see people reacting to it. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
This is the thing we're doing? Nobody
Yeah.
told me. I would have stopped. So I'm gonna just go and say Ben 10.
Okay. Yeah, it's a classic show for a lot of people. Honestly, what is your favorite film?
Chungking Express by Wong Kar-wai.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
It's a great pick.
Yeah. It's great.
What stresses you out?
What stresses me out? Overthinking stresses me out. What else stresses me out? I don't know.
That's a great answer, honestly.
I'll just say
take,
overthinking.
I'll take that. Yeah.
Sure.
Like, don't overthink it is what I would say.
True. That's a good answer.
Yeah. What helps you relax?
Meditating. I do a lot of meditating.
Nice.
Yeah, I felt like that's good to sort of wind down and chill. Yeah.
Yeah. What is a hobby or passion you have outside of TV or film?
Ooh, a hobby or passion would be I'm really into like squash.
Mhm.
That's more of like a physical hobby. Excuse me. And I've been really into like tech and like finance.
Really? Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
What fictional character do you relate to or care deeply about?
I'll spin this one to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get to turn it on me for
Yeah.
this one? It's a good question. Like in recent memory, just one of my favorite films that came out last year was Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Fantastic film. Yeah.
Ke Huy Quan's character, just like, I don't know, I really relate to just the thesis behind that character and what he represents for, the arc of that movie. I think it's just like really beautifully done.
No, it's a fantastic movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
How happy were you when it won?
I was really ecstatic when it sweeped at the Oscars. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when that movie came out, I went back and watched it 4 times in theaters.
Yeah.
It was that good.
Yeah. I saw it twice in theaters. I've seen it I think about 5 or 6 times at this point. Just
it's
on
phenomenal.
VOD and such. Yeah. What is your guilty pleasure show or film?
Oh man, I'm gonna have to go and give that one to Riverdale. That show is still
Really?
Yeah, it's so goofy. It's so goofy.
Have you finished it? You finished the whole thing?
No, but if occasionally if I want a nice laugh, I'll just look back at some highlights or something like that.
What show or film gave you your favorite reaction experience on the channel?
Oh man, I want to say there's a couple, but My Hero Academia season 3 episode 4, the Deku versus Muscular fight. Oh my god, right. That was pure euphoria. That was amazing. I was literally losing my mind.
Yeah.
The reaction's still up, but that was fantastic.
Yeah. I remember that. Everyone's reaction to that is it's nuts. I remember when the episode came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
What show or film do you wish you could erase from your memory and react to for the first time?
Oh, that's a good one. What would be? I wish I could. I wish I could have watched Your Name. Watch that fresh for the first time again.
Yeah, the anime film. Yeah,
the anime film. I was bawling like a baby, bro. I remember watching that I think it was with my mom at the time.
Yeah.
Just the moment that a certain thing happens, halfway through the film, it was 5 minutes of teardrops in the left eye and then the right eye and the left eye. So I'd probably say Your Name. That was recently that I can recall.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
And my final question here: what advice would you give to your past self if you can go back in time when you first started the channel?
It's a great question. I would say listen to people more, be more agile, and have a growth mindset. Be more agile. Don't be so rigid in your logic or your actions. Be flexible. Whether that's trying new things, not being afraid to drop new things in terms of content, strategies. Follow the latest, I guess, just sort of metas in social media. What are people tweeting? Do people how are other people dropping their content, and sort of leaning into more what others are doing and sort of absorbing what they're doing. Appreciate it, and then having your own spin on it, I think, is what I would say.
Perfect.
As well. Yeah.
Perfect. Honestly, I really, really loved hearing everything you had to tell us today, man. I really appreciate you, again, sharing your thoughts and your sort of journey with us on this crazy space. It was great. It's always great to just chat with you. You were definitely one of my favorite people in this whole space. Honestly, when you came out here, and we hooked up at not hooked up. Sorry, we met up.
we didn't talk about that time, man. Come on.
We met up at Comic-Con. In 2019, and that was the last Comic-Con that I've been to. Actually, I had not gone back since because of the pandemic, obviously, and the
I was actually surprised too. I haven't either.
Yeah. But no, I always cherish the memory, and I always appreciate you coming on to hang with us and everything. So it's great to have you on today, man.
No, for sure. And I was gonna say the same thing, man. I remember back then, going out to your studio, doing that podcast recording. Always, you've always been professional, always ahead of the curve, and just had a real passion for this space. I think I would say even more so than the people in it sometimes, honestly. I really do appreciate your friendship too, man. That was a great trip, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you gotta come back out here one of these days, man.
I know, man. Hopefully soon. I mean, what's 2024 Comic-Con is that gonna?
It's coming. Yeah, it's coming. Make some plans. Maybe. Yeah. Where can we find you online? Any social media, YouTube or otherwise?
You guys can find me over at FailWhale34 over on YouTube, and FailWhale34 over on X and Instagram as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No longer Twitter. No longer the whale.
I know, right? Yeah. We're changing. Maybe we might come back. You never know. I don't
know. Yeah. You can find me at Nerdchronic across social media. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe, all that good stuff. If you find this on the newsletter for Passionfruit, please subscribe to that and share that as well. We appreciate that as always. And we will catch you on the next episode.
Peace.